Next, we have Alan Schreiber. He's going to talk about application of herbicides in blueberries and residues.
So this project got started, well, actually before I do that, so MRLs, when we think about MRL issues, it's always associated with insecticides and fungicides. Nobody thinks about herbicides and looking for, in regards to MRLs. And I do a lot of work on MRLs, a lot, and I never think of herbicides. They're sprayed on they're sprayed on the plant. They're not really sprayed on the fruit. Usually they're applied, herbicides are applied pre-bloom during the winter for the most part, almost always before the foliage starts, and the fruit's harvested months after most of the applications. But in 2016, there were blueberries that were slated for export that couldn't be sent out because there were violative MRL levels of herbicide residues. And it's the first I'd ever heard of that. In fact, I wonder, or I suspect that a lot of folks, probably even countries, might not even be testing for, or some countries perhaps might not even be testing for herbicides. And so we had some violative residues. Now this was not a over the U.S. tolerance, but it was something that kept blueberries out of the export market. They were destined for export, but couldn't be shipped because of the residues. And I don't know how big of a problem this is, because when folks come up with violative residues, they often don't like to talk about it. And these violative residues that we have were associated with a labeled use, and they were associated with a particular chemical, a particular formulation. So we put together, kind of a short order, a field survey, and we looked at a number of herbicides. You can see here the detections that we had been reported were in Casseron G, and so you can see this was like we took 2 fields that had matrix. We had 4 fields of Casseron G, 2 fields, I guess 6 fields of Casseron from different sources. So we had 6 different people plus myself collecting samples on this from a total of 25 fields. We looked at 10 active ingredients representing 11 products. We ended up, some of the fields had more than 1 herbicide on it. So within 24 fields, we had 42 different herbicide applications, plus one of my fields that's an organic field that has never had a herbicide put on it. And we had a single positive detection. Casseron G. Skagit County. A lot of these products actually, rather than detect the product, you detect the metabolite, something that it breaks down. And so it was at 0.014 parts per million. And what's interesting was this was a product that had been applied in January, and they sampled right at first harvest. So it's 196 days between the application and when they pulled the sample. And that's pretty striking. There's a lot of Casseron that's applied with a much shorter period of between the application and the sampling. There was identical timing. It was 197 days before harvest in Whatcom County. No detection of residue. Besides the location, the only obvious difference was soil type, and that may have made a difference. Now the MRLs for this for the U.S. is 0.15, so this is well below ours, but it kept it out of Japan. and that's where it was supposed to go. So, not kidding. That's mostly the talk that I have. When we signed this up to give this talk at the time, we didn't know what the results were going to be. But with what we have seen with grower fields and with this survey, it seems like Casseron G application can be problematic. Steve Midbow, I'm going to ask you a question. Between Casseron G and Casseron Liquid, what's the split between growers using that product? Yeah, is it mostly G? Is it split, mostly liquid? Mostly granular? What percent of the blueberries do you think get an application of Casseron? A lot? Okay. But this is concerning, and that it had a very long PHI, and if you get it with a long PHI, you are more likely to get it with a shorter PHI. And I am going to be submitting a proposal to continue this survey, to look for these unexpected herbicide residues, and we also are going to propose to focus in and look at different Casseron use patterns and see if we can figure out what causes residues to show up in blueberries. I'm going to work with Tim Miller on this. It will be I think the first time I've actually had a formal project with him. There are some new herbicides coming. Somebody wants to know about what to use on field bindweed. That product right there at the bottom, Quinclorac. What is the brand name? I know Paramount's in wheat. What? Quinstar. I've been working with this product, and that is the cat's ass for field bindweed. That's a technical term there. But if you want to know what will take out field bindweed, it's this, what do you say, Quinstar? Quinstar. And the interesting thing is it's a cheap product. It'll be new to us. It's actually a generic product. That will take out field bindweed. But Allion, I've been using Allion on my blueberries for a few years. It just got registered. This is for research purposes. If you put Allion down and nothing else is green out there, you've got 2 years of weed control. Or you can get 2 years of weed control. It doesn't work on anything that's emerged. It doesn't work on perennials. But Allion is amazing. It's amazing herbicide. So anyway, this is going back to my project. There's a lot of Casseron used. It's one of the most commonly used herbicides in blueberries. And if we're getting violative residues in some situations, not others, we want to figure out what's causing it, how is it causing it, and fix it. And my last picture is actually a picture of Dr. Miller doing his herbicide trial out at my place. And he did his herbicide trial, and look at the weed pressure he has at my farm. So this is Allion. If you put Allion on, you don't have any weeds. So am I even at 10 minutes? Mr. Nichols. Okay. What's that?
When we were doing work with Sandia and Matrix 2, when you do the combination with Allion, it's 12 to 18 months of bare dirt.
I don't think it's like that where I'm at. I'm a big fan of Sandia. We use it a lot in asparagus. It's a good product, but I don't think Matrix and Sandia together. I misunderstood what he said. With Allion. Oh, that's a different story. Different story. Yeah, I misunderstood you. Okay, anybody have any questions? Tim Miller's here. He can handle it. What do you got? Listen up, Tim.
I apologize. I was called away and came in late, but did you guys talk about the metabolite of diclofenac?
No, I was talking about the metabolite. Wait a minute. Yes. Yes.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes.
The dichlorobenzamide.
What's that?
The dichlorobenzamide.
Okay, hang on here.
That's, you know, diclofenac breaks down.
I don't have it in, but yes, that's what we were looking at.
Okay, guys, thank you.
What made you ask that question?
Oh, well, in our pesticide screenings, we screen for the diclofenac, but we have one of our Japanese customers for blueberries came back and had us check for the metabolite.
You're supposed to be checking for the, you should be, whenever you send your samples out, you should look for Casseron and its metabolite, because
Bingo.
that is what they're going to find. And if they're looking for it, that's what they're going to find.
Yep. Thank you.
Anything else? Yes. Hang on 1 second here.
Do you have any thoughts on how it's getting into the fruit? Is it dust off the ground, or is it going into through the plant?
Okay, Tim, it's systemic, correct? So it's systemic. Some herbicides are contact, some are systemic. They're taken up by the plant, by the weed. This product is being taken up by the plant. I think presumably the plant is metabolizing it, right, Tim? The blueberry plant is metabolizing it. But apparently it's going into the fruit and not being metabolized. Thank you, Tim.
I like to use pink. Pink is a better color for me. Metabolites being what they are, I don't know that it's getting metabolized by the plant. It may be metabolizing in the soil and it's taking up the metabolite, but it is going to translocate it up toward the fruit. I want to point out again, though, that those levels that you saw up there, way below anything that we've ever looked at before. I don't know about the Japanese. You had it as 0, so anything was above the limit for them. It's hard to hit a 0 with any product that you're going to use. So I think knowing where that fruit is going to be destined is going to dictate which products to select. Knowing that Casseron now could cause that kind of an issue, I think knowing that if you're going to go to Japan, for instance, probably don't want to use Casseron. So I think knowing that is going to be the critical thing. And unfortunately, somebody had to get bit to know that.
I think we got. Hang on.
Is it liquid Casseron or granular, or are they both?
The detections have only been associated with granular Casseron and not liquid Casseron.
So are you saying we're good to go with liquid then, or any thought on that?
I don't know enough to tell you. I'm just going to tell you that there have been commercial applications which, as far as I know, were a labeled rate. So it wasn't a misapplication. Of course, you never really know, or I would never really know, but my understanding was it was a commercial application, labeled rate, and we also did some, that was in 2016, 2017, we did some testing. We tested 6 fields, and one of the 6 fields came up with some residues. The liquid didn't, the granular did. It's a pretty narrow base, and I'm not confident to say anything one way or the other about what you should do. We just need more work done.
We've got a question from Prosser. They're asking if you've looked at residues for Allion.
No. The reason that we didn't do this is because we were looking at commercial fields and pulling it from commercial fields, and Allion was not registered at the time, but our hope is to look at Allion next year. All right. Thank you.